Hi, welcome to Coding Droplets and thank you for watching this video. This is a complete course to learn .NET Blazor development. So this video is part of a series and this is part 11 of .NET Blazor Tutorial series. You can check out the playlist link that is mentioned in the video description for finding the other videos in this series. Before starting the implementation, let me show you the final output of the Blazor server project with authentication and authorization. Now here in this home page or in the index razor component, you can see a greeting message, "Hello guest." Also we have a login option on the top right corner of the page. Currently there are no users logged in and that is the reason it is showing "Hello guest." Now let me click on the login option and you can see a login page or razor component in which we have options to provide the credentials. Currently there are two different users with two different roles. So first let me log in by providing the credentials of the first user. Both the username and password is user. Once the user got authenticated, you might have noticed the changes in the UI. Now the greeting message changed to "Hello user." A new display greeting alert button got displayed. Also previously there was only the home option in the left side menu, but now it is also showing counter option in the menu. There is also one more change in the UI. Now instead of login, it is showing logout option. The users can log out by clicking that. Now let me click on the display greeting alert and you can see it is showing an alert, "Hello user." The reason for giving this button is to demonstrate how we can access the logged in username or other user information in the on-click event or in the code section. Now let me navigate to counter razor component and you can see that this user is able to access the counter page. So now let's log out and log in with the second user. The username and password is admin. This user is having a different role. Now you can see it is showing "Hello admin" and there are three options in the left side menu. Fetch data was not available for the previous user. The alert message will also show the name of the new user. You can see it is showing "Hello admin." Admin user can access counter razor component. Also, admin user can access fetch data, which was not available before. Now let's see how we can implement this type of authentication and authorization in a Blazor server project. Here we are using role-based authorization for changing the UI based on the user roles. Don't miss the upcoming videos in this channel. Please subscribe to the channel named Coding Droplets and don't forget to press the bell icon so that you will get notified once we upload new videos. I have opened Visual Studio. First let's create a new Blazor server project. So I am clicking on Create a New Project. Here I can search for Blazor Server app and select it. Then click Next to continue, providing the project name as Blazor Server Authentication and Authorization. Again clicking on Next. I'm using .NET 6 framework for this project and just unchecking the Configure for HTTPS checkbox. Now clicking on the Create button, so the project will get created now. It got created and we are able to see the project files in the Solution Explorer. So the first thing what I need to do is creating a folder named Authentication under the project. We'll be keeping all the classes related to authentication in this particular folder. Now we are going to create a new class named Custom Authentication StateProvider. We have to inherit this class from AuthenticationStateProvider. We have to import Microsoft.ASP.NET Core.Components.Authorization in order to use AuthenticationStateProvider. Now let's see what is AuthenticationStateProvider in Blazor. Authentication State Provider is the built-in service for Blazor server apps that obtains authentication state data from the ASP.NET Core's HttpContext.User. Now we can implement the abstract class and it will override a new method getAuthenticationStateAsync. This method will get executed when the application gets opened or the page got refreshed. Here, let me declare private protected session storage object. For that, we have to import Microsoft.ASP.NET Core.components.server.protected-browser-storage. We are going to save the logged-in user details in the protected session storage. Also, let me declare private claim principal object. For that, we need to import system.security.claims. We'll be using this object for anonymous users. Now I'm creating a constructor for this class and provide protected session storage as a parameter. We'll be adding protected session storage in dependency injection so that we can receive the object here in the constructor. Next, we can assign the value for the private protected session storage object from the constructor. Now let's move to the program.cs class and do the dependency injection for protected session storage. So we are now ready to implement the getAuthenticationStateAsync method in our custom authentication state provider class. Here first we can try reading the user session details from the protected session storage. So session storage.getAsync of user session. We have to create a model class named user session. We will do it soon. And here the user session in string represents the key of the protected session storage. Protected session storage will keep data in key value format. So we are going to save the logged in user details with the key user session. Also, we need to make this method async as this session storage function is awaited. Next, let's create the model class named user session. I am only providing two properties for this model class, username and role. You can provide more if you need. Now assigning the value to a variable named user session. User session storage result.success will be a boolean value based on getAsync method. If the value is successfully fetched, it will be true, otherwise it will be false. So here we are assigning a null value to the user session variable if it is false. Next, we are implementing an if condition to return the anonymous user authentication state if the user session is null. If it is not null, we'll create a new claims principal object with two claims in it, name and role. Also, we have to provide an authentication type string value. It can be anything. If you are not providing anything, the application will consider it as an anonymous user. So here I have provided custom auth. After that, we can return the authentication state with the newly created claims principal. Now I am providing a try-catch method and placing the code in it. This can be helpful if a user tries to modify the encrypted user session details from the protected session storage. If a user modifies the encrypted value, the application will not be able to fetch the user session from it and the application will throw an error. So we can return the anonymous authentication state in the catch section. Now let's create one more method for updating the authentication state. We'll call this method when a user log in or log out. I have provided the user session object as a parameter for this method, so we can pass the user session object from the UI when a user log in. First, I am declaring a claims principal object, then checking whether the user session object is null. Here, we will pass a null value from the UI when a user log out. So the else part means the user has logged out. First, let's implement what to happen if a user is logged in. Session storage.setAsync of the key user session and value is what we have received as the parameter. We are assigning the value of user session in protected session storage. Then we create a new claims principal with two claims, username and role. We are assigning it in our object. Now let's move to the else part. So we just need to delete the user session value from the protected session storage. Then we make the claims principal as anonymous. Finally, we are calling notify authentication state changed method, which is a part of Blazor Authentication State Provider, and we are passing the authentication state along with the claims principal. Next, let's implement the dependency injection for our custom authentication state provider class in program.cs. It is a scoped dependency, builder.services.add_scope authentication state provider, which is the Blazor service, then comma custom authentication state provider, which is our class. Now we need to fetch user data from the database for validation. Currently in this SAML project, I'm not doing any database implementation, but you can use any database and implement the method for fetching user data from your database. Here I'll be hard coding user data. First, I'll create a model class named user account, and it is having three properties: username, password, and role. Next, creating a service named user account service. I'm creating a private list of user accounts for saving the user data temporarily in memory. So you don't need this private list of user accounts. You can fetch the data from your database. Now, as I'm not using a database, I'm using a list variable to fetch the data. So in the constructor of this user account service class, I'll hardcode two users, admin and user. You can see both of the users have different roles, administrator and user. Now we need a method for fetching the user data by filtering with their username. This getByUsername method will return the user account which matches the username provided in its parameter. After that, I'm adding this service in dependency injection. I'm registering this as a singleton service. We also need to add builder.services.addAuthentication code in dependency. Now we have completed the configuration part for Blazor Server Authentication. Please don't forget to give me a thumbs up for this video if you are enjoying it. Also, let me know your feedback in the comments section. I would like to hear from you. Now let's move to the UI development. In UI, first we need a login Razor component with which the users can log in. I am creating a new Razor component and naming it as login. Now assigning the page directive /login so that this page can be accessed with this URL. Next, let me add some of the injected dependencies: user account service, IJS runtime, authentication state provider, and navigation manager. I have pasted the design for the login component. It includes two inputs, username and password, and we have one button with the text login. This is the model class for binding the values provided in the inputs. I am also creating an object of the model class. Next, I am providing a method named authenticate, which has been provided in the onClick event of the login button. In this method, we'll fetch the user data by calling the getByUsername method in our user account service. As a parameter, we are sending the username which we got from the input. Next, we are just verifying the user account is not null. If the user account does not exist with the provided username, we'll get a null value here. Also, we are validating the password with an OR operator. So if the user account is null or password is invalid, we are just showing an alert to the user by invoking with IJS runtime. Now, what if the username and password is valid. I am creating an object of the custom authentication state provider by casting it from the injected authentication state provider. Then we can call the update authentication state method which we have implemented. So this method will save the value in the session storage. Finally, we are navigating the user to home page or index razor component. Next, we are making some changes in the index razor component. So in the home page, we need to show a greeting message along with the username. For that, I am implementing Blazor's Authorize View component. Inside Authorize View component, we can provide different designs for 3 authorization statuses: authorized, not authorized, and authorizing. Authorizing means the application is executing getAuthenticationState method in our custom authentication state provider class, but the execution is not completed. So here we only need 2 separate designs, one for authorized and another for not authorized. We'll not be showing anything if the status is authorizing. We'll greet the user with their username if they are authorized, otherwise we'll just display hello guest. Now we need one more authorized view for displaying the greeting button. Here we only need authorized design. We don't show anything if the user is not authenticated. Next, in the code section, we need to implement method for button onClick event. Just before that, I am opening app.razor file and changing the route view to authorize route view. We can only use authorize view in the razor components if we have mentioned authorize route view here. Then only the razor component will receive the user authorization details. Next, we need to add one more cascading parameter, that is cascading authentication state. This is for getting the user authorization details in the code section. Now in the code section, we can declare a cascading parameter task of authentication state. You can provide any name for this cascading parameter. Next, we can implement the onClick event. First, I'll get the authentication state by awaiting the cascading parameter. So the message to be displayed is hello and whatever value we have in the auth state.user.identity.name. Then finally, invoking the alert JavaScript function using IJS runtime. For using IJS runtime, we need to inject it. Now we use IJS runtime. Let's invoke alert using invoke void async method in IJS runtime and providing the await keyword. Next, we need to make some modifications in the left side navigation menu. We are showing the menu options based on the user roles. So let me open the nav menu razor component in the shared folder, then implementing the authorize view razor component by mentioning the roles parameter. We need to show the fetch data menu option only for the users with role administrator. Hence, we can move the fetch data menu option to the authorized component of the authorized view with roles administrator. Next, we need one more authorized view for counter menu option. Counter menu option should be visible for users with both administrator and user roles. We can provide multiple roles by just separating them with a comma. Now we can move the counter menu to the newly created authorized view. These are the changes we need to do in the left side menu. Next, in main layout, we can add option to login and log out. And under not authorized, we can place the login option. For logout, we can provide an onClick event to remove the user session details from the session storage. So let's implement the logout method. As we did before, I am parsing the custom authentication state provider from the authentication state provider. We have to inject the dependencies as well. Now we can call the update authentication state method in our custom authentication state provider and pass the parameter value as null. After that, just navigating the user to the home page. The next important thing we need to do is to provide the authorize attribute in the razor components. The users will only be able to see menu options based on their user roles, but still they can manually enter the URL in the browser's address bar and access the page. So let's restrict the unauthorized users from accessing the Razor component itself. In Fetch Data Razor component, I have provided the authorize attribute which will allow only administrator users. Then in Counter Razor component, I am providing the authorize attribute which will allow both administrator and user roles. Now let's run the application and see whether it is working as expected. Let me log in with admin user credentials. Both username and password are admin. Display greeting button is working fine. User is able to view all pages from the menu options. Let's log out and log in with the second credentials. Both username and password are user. You can see that only counter option is available in the menu and display greeting button is also working fine. Now I'll show how we are saving the user session details in the session storage. If you open the developer options in the browser, you can navigate to Application tab and inside Session Storage you will be able to find the details. Here you can see the user session details are stored in an encrypted format, and that is how the protected session storage saves the data. Now I'm trying to modify the encrypted value. Let's refresh the page and you can see that the user got logged out. Next, I'll show you few more things. In host.cshtml file, you can see an option named Render Mode. By default, it will be server pre-rendered. So let me give you a brief idea of what is render mode. Basically, there are two types of server render modes. The first one is server pre-rendered. Renders the component into static HTML and includes a marker for a Blazor server-side application. When the user agent starts, it uses this marker to bootstrap a Blazor application. The second one, server, renders a marker for a Blazor server-side application. This doesn't include any output from the component. When the user agent starts, it uses this marker to bootstrap a Blazor application. If the render mode is server pre-rendered, we'll receive error in the getAuthenticationStateAsync method of our custom authentication state provider class while refreshing the page. Because the application cannot process IGS runtime, which will be used to access the session storage. But we'll not see that error as we have implemented the try-catch method. If you need to remove that error, you can use server in the render mode. Now let's run the application and you can see everything works fine. I'm trying to log in with credentials and authentication got succeeded, so all are working fine. Now without authenticating, let me try to access fetch data page and you can see an error message, not authorized. We can even customize this message, or we can show a different design instead of this message. Let me show you how to do that. In app.razor file, we can provide a different design for not authorized state. So I'm providing a custom message, you are not authorized, and this is a custom message in brackets. Also, we can show custom design for authorizing state. I am providing a custom message for that as well. You are getting authorized and custom message in brackets. Now, in order to display the authorizing message, I am providing an awaitable task.delay of 5 seconds. Let's run the application. It is getting compiled. You can see the authorizing message now. Now let me try to navigate to fetch data by entering the URL manually. So it shows the authorizing message, and after 5 seconds, it will show the not authorized message. Now I am authenticating with admin user and accessing the fetch data razor component. And you can see it is working properly. So that's it for this video. Hope you enjoyed it. Please like, share and comment the video. See you all in the next video. Thank you.